The news day continues here on One News Now Business. I'm Diego Castro. Here are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate fronts. S&P Global Ratings affirms the Philippines BBB Plus investment grade rating. S&P cited the country's above-average economic growth potential, which is seen to drive constructive development outcomes and underpin broader credit metrics. The Triple Plus rating is a notch below the A-grade level targeted by the government. S&P also kept its stable outlook for the Philippines. That means the credit rater expects that Manila will maintain healthy growth rates in the next 2 years. S&P also expects the country's fiscal performance to materially improve over the next 24 months. The Philippine government's budget deficit shrank in October as revenue growth outpaced spending. In its cash operations report, the Treasury Bureau said the fiscal gap narrowed by 65.3% to 34.4 billion pesos. Revenue collections jumped 33.6% compared with a year ago to 385.8 billion pesos. Government spending, meanwhile, rose 8.32% year-on-year to just over 420 billion pesos amid higher operating expenses from the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections. So far, the government remains safe from overshooting its deficit cap for the entire year. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. The Securities and Exchange Commission blocks crypto exchange Binance and its operations in the Philippines. With a ban in place, the public will no longer be able to access its website and applications while inside the country. The removal of axes will take effect within 3 months after the issuance of the advisory dated November 28. This is to give Filipino investors time to close their positions and take out their investments from Binance. The SEC earlier warned against using Binance as it is not authorized to sell or offer securities in the Philippines. The Commission found that Binance has been actively employing promotional campaigns on social media to attract Filipinos to engage in investment and trading activities on its platforms. Sharing with us his thoughts on that headline, we have with us on the show Nichel Gaba, CEO of homGrow cryptocurrency trading platform PDAX. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Diego. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's get right to it. Now, the SEC is blocking Binance. And what does this mean for PDAX and the broader crypto market in the PH?
Well, I think the timing of the ban and the blocking certainly it's makes sense given that the founder of Binance CZ and Binance itself just recently pleaded guilty to money laundering charges in the US. So the timing makes a lot of sense. But I think more broadly, what this really signals is that crypto as an industry is maturing. We're getting more professional fund managers in the ecosystem. We're getting more institutions interested in crypto. And this is really just that ongoing trend of crypto becoming much more regulated, much more institutional, and much safer for consumers.
But the question is, the crackdown on Binance reportedly was ineffective in some countries that tried to block it. Now, with some investors continuing to use the platform still, do you think this latest SEC move will ultimately put an end to their operations here in the PH?
That's tough to say because it's always very difficult to regulate anything that's online. I think tools are very, very limited. But I think what it will do is it will entice players to move away from unregistered financial institutions like Binance and like other platforms and go into platforms where they may enjoy more trust and protection from local regulators. So these are the licensed institutions who, might not always be the easiest or nicest to use, but probably are safer and offer you more protections against certain risks.
Okay, but 3 months. I mean, is that really enough time for investors to pull out their assets? And what do you think the risks are they exposed to?
Well, actually, with crypto, it's so easy to pull out assets. So it's not like a bank account where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. With crypto, you can literally set up a paper wallet or set up a hardware wallet and withdraw your funds at any time. Obviously, people are not being asked to sell. So you can also, customers of Binance can also open accounts with registered VASPs, and there are more than a dozen registered VASPs in the Philippines, and transfer their assets.
Okay, the SEC advisory says Binance is not registered. How do you believe that this has something to do also with what you mentioned a while ago, that the Binance chief pleaded guilty to breaking U.S. anti-money laundering laws?
Well, I think the Philippines is certainly conservative with its money laundering stance. It goes back to one of your earlier news items, also our triple B plus rating, where we always want to attract more foreign investment, and having a high risk money laundering financial system is a question mark for a lot of investors. So this is really about making sure that our financial system is not a haven for money laundering activities, and from that perspective, this is an essential step.
Yeah, you mentioned high risks, no? And are there any risks of similar cases in the Philippines?
So I think any time that financial institutions are operating outside of the BSP, the SEC's regulatory framework, and also more broadly the outside the ambit of the Anti-Money Laundering Council. There will always be instances of suspicious transactions
Okay.
not being reported, assets that are not being frozen, etc.
The reason that the SEC used for Binance was they said hindi daw sila registered. Do you think Binance still has the chance to comply with registration requirements at this point and have this decision reversed?
So my understanding is that there has been a lot of dialogue between our regulators and Binance in the past. Now, for whatever reason, it did not result to bringing Binance into full compliance. So now, certainly, the steps that the SEC has taken is very consistent with other businesses. In other businesses, if you don't have government permits, you won't be allowed to operate. And I think that's also what we're seeing here.
Okay, and now let's move on to the Treasury Department. Now, recently, they offered the country's first ever tokenized bonds. Now, can you tell us more about this, and what role does your platform play in this?
Yeah, so certainly a big week for crypto and blockchain in the Philippines. Recently, the Bureau of the Treasury announced that they are tokenizing the Treasury bonds, and indeed, we had a maiden offering that was largely oversubscribed. Diego, one of the challenges in our local bond markets is that it's not government securities or these Treasury bills are not always readily accessible to the average Filipino. There are very high minimum requirements to access what most consider the most basic financial investment, the Treasury bill. So now that the DOF and the Bureau of Treasury have moved to digitize Treasury instrument, they can be accessible to anyone for as little as 500 pesos through the PDAX mobile app.
Yeah, and the requirements are, I'm sorry, but for our viewers, are the requirements easier through these tokenized bonds?
Certainly. So a lot of us are familiar with setting up a GCash wallet, setting up a Maya wallet. It's as easy as that. So,
okay.
in the past, if you want to buy a Treasury bill, you're gonna have to go to the branch. You're at least gonna have a few million pesos because there are very high minimums. But now you can access at least between 6 to 6.5% risk-free, what the market calls risk-free because it's the government that's paying you your interest for as little as 500 pesos. So certainly it's much more accessible. You can do it in minutes.
So you said you can do it in minutes. First, it is 500 pesos, like setting up a digitized wallet. Now, how will interested users invest in this? I mean, where do they begin? What is their first step?
Sure. So the first step obviously is to download the app. I know that the DOF and the Bureau of the Treasury intends to roll this out to as many institutions as possible. So probably it will be made available to your bank's digital app in due course. But right now it is available on the PDAX mobile app. So PDAX is downloadable via the App Store and Play Store. And that's the first step really. And then there's going to be obviously KYC process where you submit an ID, you answer a few questions, and you'd be good to go.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, PDAX CEO Nichel Gaba. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's now take a quick look at some corporate headlines we are watching. The Supreme Court ruling lifted a previous court order that temporarily reinstated Japanese tycoon Kazuo Okada as shareholder and CEO of Okada Manila. Okada Manila has since confirmed that the Japanese tycoon is no longer affiliated, associated, or in any way officially connected with a casino hotel. Ayala-led Asen Corporation has signed a term loan facility worth 20 billion pesos. The company said the loan is part of the modifications and entry into a sustainability-linked loan facility with Asian Development Bank and the Bank of Philippine Islands. Cebu Pacific and Philippine Airlines are expected to increase their capital expenditures next year to fund some fleet expansions that are the largest to date in Philippine aviation. Cebu Air will hike its capex guidance by almost a fifth to 50 billion pesos in 2024, mainly for the addition of 16 aircraft to its fleet. Flag carrier PAL, meanwhile, is still in the process of drawing up its spending guidance for 2024, but it also projects a capex increase to pay for aircraft deliveries and to upgrade amenities and services. The airline is working with Airbus on 2 orders, first for 13 narrow-body units and second for 9 wide-body jets. And those are the top business stories of the hour. I'm Diego Castro. Join us again at 2 p.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.